Summer 1998, exposed. The sinister secret that haunted 17 families and cursed their lives forever. Kelly Anderson had always loved the sweet scent of summer, but this year, something felt wrong. Maplewood, the perfect suburb where kids played carefree and barbecues lit up warm evenings, was turning ominous. Whispers floated through the neighborhood like murky fog, hiding shadows that seemed to grow darker with every passing day. It was the kind of place where families thrived, yet, now, families were vanishing. 13 distinct cases, each child seemingly just on the cusp of their bright futures, now swallowed by a town that was supposed to protect them. Rumors swirled like leaves in a storm, all pointing toward the unnervingly charismatic Mr. Dalton, the man running the community's charity, with a smile that felt more like a snare than warmth. The cicadas buzzed like a swarm of unseen monsters, and Kelly could feel the weight of panic creeping in around her. Each evening, her mother returned from her shift, exhaustion etched deep into her features, as if the late hours were stealing her spirit. With her father gone, they relied on each other, yet Kelly felt strangely alone, isolated in a web of growing hysteria. Tracking the children's names in bold letters on flyers pasted on trees turned Kelly's stomach. She cycled past Mr. Dalton's charity headquarters one sweltering afternoon dark, forbidding windows casting unsettling shadows on the sidewalk where laughter used to echo. Every bushel of freshly baked goods was now tainted with suspicion, as if each cookie might be a hidden bait. Flickering streetlights revealed neighbors peeking through lace curtains, their mouths shut tight like the secrets they harbored. Late one humid night, while seeking clarity, Kelly stumbled on an eerie gathering at the park. Lanterns swayed above a sea of tense faces, laughter ringing hollow. She recognized her neighbors, their faces white as ghosts in the dim light. Rachel and Tom, the couple who lived across the street, now stood stone-faced, voices murmuring in heightened urgency. Mrs. Jenkins shot her a look that severed her breath, a single gesture that screamed, "Danger!" louder than words. Kelly froze, fear knotting her insides. Her safe space, once homey and inviting, was now tainted. She felt exposed. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Every inch of Maplewood felt like a tightly wrapped parcel ready to burst. Pets returned home with haunted eyes, and shadows moved just out of sight. Kelly's paranoia sharpened, her once carefree neighborhood morphing into a battleground of unseen terror. Glimpses of lurking figures outside her window at dusk became normal, each moment tightening that vice of dread. As she dug deeper into the newspaper clippings about the missing families, her heart raced. What if what had been happening around her was not just coincidence? What if she was next? The truth was lurking, darker and scarier than she could imagine, poised to shake the fragility of the life she thought she knew. Then the phone rang, a chilling sound slicing through the heavy summer silence. "You need to get out before it's too late," the voice whispered, sending ripples of terror racing down her spine. The summer was no longer about fun, it was a countdown. A countdown to uncovering the sinister secret about to unfold. The night wrapped around Kelly like a suffocating blanket as she tried to process the ominous warning. The voice on the other end of the line clicked dead, leaving behind a deafening silence that seemed to stretch for miles. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing the fear coursing through her veins. She pressed her palms against her ears, trying to drown out the cacophony of dread that filled her mind. The darkness outside felt alive, churning and twisting, whispering secrets she was not meant to hear. What could she do? How could she escape a danger that loomed like an unseen predator in the shadows? Panic urged her to flee, but where would she go? She couldn't abandon her home, not when her mother needed her the most. Just then, a loud bang shattered the stillness, followed by a low, menacing laugh that sent chills crawling across her skin. She rushed to the window, heart racing as she peered outside. The street lay deserted, moonlight spilling over the familiar pavement, yet something felt dreadfully off. The shadows shifted, and she swore she saw a tall figure lingering beneath the flickering streetlight. Mr. Dalton. His frame was all angles in the dim light, and that smile it widened, somehow knowing she was watching. "Get inside." Her mother's voice pierced through her thoughts, urgency gripping every word. Kelly jumped back from the window, stumbling backward until she hit the wall. The door flew open, and her mother rushed in, breathless from her shift and panic-stricken. "Did you see him? Did you see what he was doing?" her mother demanded, locking the door with trembling hands. "No. Just him standing there." Kelly's words spilled out clumsily. "He was just smiling." "Mom, what if he's connected to the disappearances?" Her mother drew a shaky breath, her eyes wide with fear. "We need to stay quiet. If he hears us talking," but Kelly couldn't let it go. What if he saw the note? The warnings? The clock ticked ominously, each second a reminder of the growing threat outside. "We have to protect ourselves. Tomorrow, we'll go to the police," her mother finally decided, though her voice quivered. That night, sleep was elusive. Every creak of the house, every rustle of the wind made Kelly's body tense. A sense of dread twisted in her stomach, anchoring itself in the pit of her heart. She awoke with a start. Her mother was gone. The darkness clung to the air, thicker than before. Panic surged through her, and she jumped out of bed, searching the house frantically. "Mom!" she called, her voice wavering. No answer. The chilling emptiness only deepened her fear. She dashed down the hallway, peering into the kitchen, only to find it empty. Just as she turned to check the living room, she saw a note on the counter, hastily written, "Gone to help, trust no one. Keep safe." Her mind raced. Did her mother discover something? Was she really going to the police, or was there something darker at play? But what did trust no one really mean? The words swirled in her mind like a tornado, and the walls felt like they were closing in. Kelly's heartbeat quickened. She moved back toward the window, scanning the street once again. Nothing out of the ordinary. Yet she sensed the pressure, that heavy feeling of eyes watching. Then, as if on cue, the shadows began to pulse. A rustle from outside. Kelly gasped, stepping back. A figure bent, dark and looming, just beyond the reach of the light. The streetlight flickered violently before dying out completely, plunging the world into inky blackness. This time, she couldn't leave it. Curiosity mingled with fear, dragging her back to the window. What was happening out there? What if the truth had been staring her in the face, and she was too afraid to see it? Click. A flashlight flickered on the beam dancing across the yard. And in its light she caught a glimpse of a familiar face. Her heart broke. Rachel? Before her eyes the figure began to move closer, and panic struck. Rachel's face twisted in a silent scream, hands raised as if warning her. Was this a rescue? Or was this the beginning of something far more sinister? Kelly's scream echoed through the still night as the shadows clawed at her, drowning her sense of safety. The time for hiding was over. The true terror of Maplewood was about to be unveiled. The air was thick with dread, every breath heavier than the last as Kelly pressed her forehead against the cool glass. The flashlight beam, broken, flickering like a dying heartbeat, danced awkwardly over Rachel's face. But it wasn't her friend anymore. Something dark lurked behind those once vibrant eyes, something twisted and corrupt. Rachel? Kelly's voice trembled, wavering between hope and terror. What happened? Where's my mom? Rachel recoiled as if struck. Her mouth opened, but no sound emerged, only a silent scream that clawed at Kelly's sanity. Frantic, Kelly tugged at the window, but the locks felt sticky, resisting her every effort. Her palms slickened with sweat against the frame. Get out of here! Rachel's lips formed the words, but still, no sound came. Panic flooded Kelly's senses. Her heart thundered in her chest, a frantic drum calling her to run. She could feel the shadows thickening around her. A sudden crack of splintering wood echoed from the back, freezing her to the spot. Her mother's warning sprang to life: trust no one. With a fire igniting her resolve, she finally pried the window open, desperation giving her strength. "Rachel, please! Get inside!" Kelly pleaded, hoping against hope that her friend would recognize her. But Rachel turned, face contorting into a mask of terror, and sprinted down the street, vanishing into the dark. Kelly's heart sank, urgency clawing at her throat. She had to find her mom. The note screamed at her from the kitchen, "Trust no one." How could she stay safe when everything felt like a trap closing in? Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, a soft, mocking laugh mingling with it. She slipped through the window, desperate to avoid the same fate as her mother. Coldness enveloped her, chilling her bones, as she stepped onto the grass. The backyard felt like a stage for nightmares, moonlight barely piercing the oppressive shadows that surrounded her. Each step forward felt like walking through quicksand, time thinning and distorting, twisting her perception of reality. She wished for the comfort of her home, for the warmth of her mother's embrace, but now, that sanctuary was a cage of horrors. Just as she reached the edge of the yard, a rustling behind her made Kelly whip around. A figure lurked in the darkness, and fear gripped her heart. "Mom?" she whispered, voice trembling, but it wasn't he, her mother. The silhouette stepped into the slant of moonlight, revealing Mr. Dalton, his cold smile somehow broader under the pale glow. "Leaving so soon?" he drawled, the phrase laced with a sickening sweetness. Her instincts screamed to run, but her body was still, paralyzed by fear. "What do you want?" she demanded, forcing her voice to steady. His laughter rang like haunting bells, echoing in the hollow silence of the night. "You're not ready to know yet, sweet Kelly. You will be, though." And then, like a nightmare pulling her deeper, the shadows behind him stirred. Kelly's mind raced, recalling Rachel's terror, the note clutched in her hand, and the emptiness of her home. Suddenly, the ground beneath her turned soft and giving, like quicksand sucking her down. She gasped, glancing back at the house. "Mom!" The scream tore from her lips as she stumbled, pulling free just before she sank into the earth. "Your mom is just fine," he said, sarcasm choking his words. "But she won't be alone for long." With that, he vanished into the shadows, leaving Kelly at the mercy of the darkness. Adrenaline kicked in, forcing her to turn and run, racing past the tree line toward the street. The trees loomed behind her like sentinels, whispering threats that clawed at her mind. But the road lay silent, cold moonlight deeming it a pathway into uncertainty. Every footstep echoed the absence of safety, and as she reached the street, she froze again. The neighborhood looked normal, yet it felt like a crime scene wrapped in an unseen veil. Another flash of light caught her eye. Rachel's flashlight. It blinked from the direction of the abandoned park, the very ground where secrets had festered for years. Kelly hesitated. Only a moment, her heart pounding louder than any fear. She didn't know what awaited her, but she couldn't turn back now. Whatever had taken her mother and her friend was still out there, and it was time to confront the shadows head-on. With resolve, she dashed toward the park, each step an echo of fear and determination. What secrets lay buried under the old swings, where laughter once rang? The answer lurked in the dark, waiting for her to unearth it. The park loomed ahead, a gnarled silhouette against the cloudy sky. Rusted swings swayed slowly, creaking like the whispers of forgotten children. Shadows danced beneath the old oak tree, spilling secrets she could almost hear. Each step felt heavier, drawn by a pull that twisted her stomach in knots. As she entered through the cracked, rusted gate, the flashlight beam flickered nervously. The thicket felt alive, branches reaching like skeletal fingers, scratching at her skin. Kelly forced herself to breathe, to push through the creeping dread pressing against her. She had to find Rachel. Had to find answers. The soft crunch of gravel underfoot was oddly soothing, but that comfort crumbled away when her gaze flickered over to the overgrown patch of dirt where the jungle gym once stood. All that remained was a ghostly frame, jagged and off balance. It looked like the very bones of a memory too horrifying to recall. "What are you doing here?" A voice shattered the fragile calm. It came from behind the derelict slide. Kelly whipped around, pulse racing. Was it Rachel? But no, another figure emerged, a boy maybe her age, dirt smudged across his pale cheeks. His eyes shimmered, dark and unreadable. You shouldn't be here, not after dark. Where's Rachel? Kelly demanded, her voice an urgent whisper. Did you see her? The boy hesitated, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting something to crash through the trees. You really don't want to know what lurks in this place. Tell me. Kelly pressed. Each second felt like an eternity. The shadows felt thicker now, creeping ever closer. He took a shaky breath, eyes darting. Rachel, is she? Asked, not like she was before. His voice dropped to a low murmur. Something changed her. It took her to the others. The others? Kelly felt the cold prick of reality slice through her. What do you mean? They don't. He hesitated, swallowing hard, breaking the silence painfully. They don't come back. They find the voices in the dark, and they don't come back. They just run. He shouted suddenly, eyes wide with genuine fear. You need to go. Before she could react, he dashed away, swallowed by the shadows. Kelly's heart raced. Wait! She cried, but he was already gone, leaving only the dread and loneliness behind. She stood there, trembling in the stillness that followed. Her instincts screamed to run, but where? Rachel's flashlight pulsed one last time, semi-hidden among the weeds, beckoning. A beacon, or perhaps a trap. The wind picked up, rustling through the branches, as if answering her silent question. She could feel it, the weight of something wrong clinging to her, as she moved closer. Kneeling, she grabbed the flashlight, hands shaking as it illuminated the ground. What lay before her was unthinkable. Bits of fabric, all clinging to one another, like minuscule, tattered dreams. The flashlight beam traced over the earth, revealing names etched into the soil, names of children from years ago, the lost. Kelly's stomach lurched. She stepped back, her mouth dry. No. No. The fear wrapped around her, squeezing tighter. She could feel the weight of the unseen watching her. Then, from the depths of the park, a soft voice broke through the echoing silence. Kelly. It was Rachel's voice. But it was wrong. It wasn't he, her friend. It was laced with something dark and hollow. A siren call beckoning her deeper into the trees. Rachel? Kelly's heart felt as if it might burst. Every instinct screamed to flee, but she edged toward the voice, moving against the pull of dread. Come and play. The inflection was all wrong, a sing-song taunt that cracked her resolve. Shadows swirled around her, memories of laughter twisted into haunting echoes. She moved closer, trembling yet entranced, as the park faded into a chilling echo of what was once innocent. And then it hit her somewhere in the recesses of her mind, a sliver of realization. It's a trap, she whispered, panic flooding her senses. But it was too late. The shadows shifted, closing in with hungry whispers. Kelly stumbled backward, her pulse racing as the ground beneath her began to feel like it was pulling her down again. She dashed toward the park exit, desperation overwhelming her. Yet the darkness followed, hungry, relentless, suffocating. As she burst through the gate, the whispers turned into screams, drowning out her thoughts, a cacophony of children lost, calling her back to the shadows. She had to break free. Time was running out suddenly, a rustling behind her made her freeze. What had she unleashed? And just like that, the shadows were no longer just whispers in the park. They were alive, and they hungered for something more than just lost souls. What horrors awaited her, and would she escape before they would find her in their playground of despair? The rustling behind her gained swift momentum, a chorus of tangled whispers spiraling into a singular sound, a hissing, hungry sound that seemed to seep from the very ground. Kelly turned, her adrenaline pumping, ready to face what her intuition screamed was behind her. The air felt thick, loaded with something dark and grotesque, suffocating her thoughts and fanning her terror. Get away from me! She shouted, the command torn from her throat. Her voice quivered, yet she pushed it out into the growing mass of shadows, desperate to assert her presence. But the darkness didn't answer. Instead, it surged forward, like a tide swallowing the moonlight. Taking a hesitant step back, she glimpsed something flickering in the distance, illuminated by the moon overhead. Her eyes widened. It was a figure, and it was approaching. At first, hope kindled in her heart, but as the figure emerged into the light, she froze, a scream clawing at her throat. It wasn't Rachel. The shape was distorted, contorted in a way that felt wrong. Hollowed cheeks, a mouth too wide, stretched into an unnatural grin that revealed teeth aged and jagged. Its eyes glimmered with a malevolent glow, reflecting her panic back at her, drowning her resolve. The thing extended a finger, pointed directly at Kelly, and in the silence, its voice dripped with malice, "You shouldn't have come here." She stumbled backward, heart racing. "What do you want?" Her mind reeled even as she felt the ground shift beneath her feet, almost beckoning her to return to the shadows. "What do we want?" It echoed, the words slinking like smoke, curling around her as the air chilled rapidly. "We want what's ours." The laughter, the play, the screams. The last word lingered in the air like a bell tolling, reminding her of all she'd heard in the park, the children who never returned. Their cries were woven into the very fabric of the earth, and her skin prickled with the realization that she stood on hallowed ground soaked with stolen joy and lost innocence. A sudden rustle drew her focus, another figure emerging from the trees behind the grotesque thing. This one was different. It was smaller, familiar. "Rachel!" "Kelly?" Rachel's voice trembled, but this time it lacked the allure. Her eyes were clouded, as if she were somewhere far away, trapped behind a veil of darkness. "You shouldn't have followed me." "Rachel!" Kelly's throat caught in the grip of despair. Her friend's face was ashen, and hopelessness wrapped around Kelly tighter than any shadow could. "What happened to you?" "They chose me," Rachel said, a distant smile playing on her lips, her voice hauntingly sugary. "You could be here too, the fun we could have together." She began to reach out, her fingers twitching like a flower craving sunlight. "No!" Kelly's heart pounded against her ribs, panic clawing at her throat like a wild animal. "You're not Rachel! You're not my friend!" The grotesque figure laughed, a sound hollow and chilling, cascading laughter echoing teasingly off the trees. "What will it take, Kelly? To play? To join us? Feel the joy, the power?" With every heartbeat, Kelly felt the pull of the shadows, growing stronger, whispering sweet nothings of a life woven into their darkness. She stepped back, scrambling toward the gate, pushing against the tide of despair that reached for her. "Don't leave!" Rachel's voice sharpened, now laced with something feral and desperate. "You can't leave us! We'll come for you!" Kelly's breath came in gasps as she turned, sprinting toward the exit. The yells grew louder, a cacophony of lost souls clawing for her until she could taste the dust and decay rising from the park's core. As she neared the gate, an unseen force hurled her back, slamming her hard against the ground. Darkness surrounded her, heavy and suffocating. The whispers morphed into shouts, a chaotic frenzy that nearly drowned her out. And it was then she noticed the ground shifting, pulling her down into a consuming abyss. She frantically clawed at the earth, panic bubbling over into sheer terror, knowing that if she fell, she might join the others forever. In that instant, clarity sliced through her fear. "I will not be one of you!" she screamed, forcing herself to stand, even as the shadows gnawed at her ankles. Suddenly, a flicker of light surged, striking her like a beacon, illuminating the path once more. "Rachel, I'm coming back for you!" she cried, bracing herself against the force. She had to escape, but could she really leave Rachel behind? The shadows shrieked, their anger reverberating in her bones. They would not let either of them go easily. As the light became brighter, Kelly knew one thing for sure. This battle was far from over. And somewhere in the depths of the approaching darkness, a promise of retaliation whispered just out of reach. What would happen when shadows were confronted with the light? The moment she shouted Rachel's name, the ground beneath Kelly rumbled, pulling violently at her shoes. The shadows writhed, hungry for her warmth, eager to drag her into their depths. The grotesque figure stood, entranced by the fear radiating from her, voicing darkness she could almost taste. "Join us, Kelly!" it hissed, the words curling like smoke. The air thickened with dread, burrowing into her bones. She willed her legs to move, but the ground felt sticky, like molasses pulling her back. Sweat trickled down her spine, pooling at the small of her back, her heart pounding wildly. Rachel! She screamed again, panic riding her voice, desperate for her friend to rise above the shadows that clutched her soul. But Rachel remained fixated. You're too late, she murmured, drawing ever closer to the grotesque figure. You'll understand soon. It's beautiful here. An eerie light flickered in her eyes, but it was devoid of warmth, as if a fire had been extinguished. Kelly's instincts screamed at her to flee, but she couldn't abandon Rachel. A sudden wave of sorrow crashed over her. This couldn't be the girl she'd grown up with. Fight it! Please, Rachel! As the darkness rolled toward her, something shifted in Kelly's gut. The flicker of light she'd seen wasn't just illusion, it was real and glowing fiercely. It pulsed behind the shadows, breaking through the ever-tightening grip, and she felt a kinship with that light. Could it hold the answers to rescue Rachel? Casting another glance at Rachel, Kelly summoned every ounce of willpower, every memory of laughter, joy, and friendship. You have to save yourself. Remember the pancakes? Our summer road trips? Each memory shot through her like a lifeline, hoping to tether Rachel to the surface. The grotesque figure shifted, furious at her defiance. Memories are worthless here. It screeched, its jagged grin morphing into a snarl. The shadows twisted, their voices rising to a deafening roar, swirling into her thoughts, attempting to silence her heart. But Kelly stood firm, breath rasping in her throat. They're everything. You can fight. All at once, Rachel blinked, a flicker of recognition breaking through her fog. Kelly? Her voice was suddenly unsure, trembling like a leaf caught in an autumn breeze. Help me! Before Kelly could reach her, the grotesque figure lashed out, its fingers elongating into claws that snaked toward her. Her instincts kicked in, she dived to the side, narrowly escaping a grip that could shake the earth itself. Run! Rachel's desperate shout echoed behind her. Get out while you can! Kelly surged forward, abandoning Rachel to the grasp of shadows as the darkness swelled with confusion, howling at the breaking bond. She burst free from the suffocating tendrils, sprinting toward the gate that loomed like a dark brain on the horizon. Her heart hammered in her chest, the pounding echoing the frenzied whispers. Suddenly, the ground erupted with terrible force, sending gravel and dirt flying as the grotesque figure launched itself into a sprint behind her, its laughter now a horrifying symphony of madness. It gained on her faster than she had imagined, the shadows poured out, and a multitude of clawing hands reached to claim her. And then, she felt it. The light pulsed behind her with renewed vigor, illuminating the park in a brilliant explosion. She dared a glance over her shoulder, and what she saw froze her in place. Rachel stood, partially shrouded in darkness but desperately grasping for the light. Don't let them take you! She cried. In that moment, the haunting laughter was replaced with a chilling silence, pregnant with fear. The grotesque figure slowed, its confidence shaken. Kelly turned, longing pulling her back, but the light was waning too. The shadows crept closer. Rachel! But as she yelled, the shadows surged forward, licking at her heels, their hunger insatiable. Help me! Rachel's voice was barely a whisper now, fading. With the gate barely a breath away, Kelly felt the last remnants of hope slipping through her fingers. What would happen to Rachel? Would she leave her behind forever? It was a choice that threatened to splinter her very soul. Just as her heart began to break, the night erupted with an unearthly scream, and the ground trembled in response. The shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned, allowing the light to flicker one last time, bright and fierce, a beacon of salvation fighting against encroaching darkness. But the question remained, could one flickering light withstand the weight of so many shadows? As Kelly plunged forward, the world spiraled into chaos. What would happen when the light fought back against such dark temptation? The gate was close, just a few desperate leaps away, yet Kelly felt as if the earth beneath her was shifting, trying to swallow her whole. Fear clawed at her, pulling her back, whispering vile promises. The grotesque figure surged forward, shadows trailing like a tattered cloak behind it. It hungered, its breath reeking of decay. Kelly! The anguished cry slipped from Rachel's lips again, a last flicker of light in the engulfing blackness. The sweetness of their memories tangled with dread, keeping her anchored, yet every second Rachel spent in that abyss chipped away at her strength. Kelly stumbled, her fingers brushing the rough wood of the gate, but she hesitated. "I can't leave you!" she shouted, breathless. The shadows shivered, creeping closer, coiling around her ankles. Phantoms gnawed at her resolve. "I'm fading. Go!" Rachel's voice was a low, haunting echo that clawed at Kelly's chest. The grotesque figure laughed, a horrific sound that echoed through the air, vibrating with anticipation. It thrived on her indecision, dancing just outside of reach, reveling in her agony. "Don't you see? You can't save me!" Rachel surrendered to the darkness, her face distorting in pain. The shadows pressed harder, pushing her closer to that grotesque fate. A palpable crack rippled in the air, blurring the boundary between their worlds. In a frenzied rush, Kelly's mind raced with possibilities. She could leave without Rachel, a survival born of instinct, or she could dive back in, risking it all for a ghost of hope. But at what cost? Surrendering to fear meant losing herself. With every second that ticked like a clock counting down, her resolve solidified. "No! Rachel! I'll pull you out!" Kelly squared her shoulders, muscles tensed as new adrenaline washed over her. A surge of light flickered from the depths of her own heart, rising in opposition to the looming shadows. "I'm not done fighting!" she yelled, reclaiming the memories that wrapped around her like armor. The grotesque figure turned, its laughter faltering, uncertainty flashing across its contorted face. Shadows slithered back, distorting, as if they too hesitated in a heartbeat of doubt. With a leap, Kelly sprinted back toward the chaos, the light blooming brighter in her chest, illuminating the suffocating dark. Each memory she dredged up ignited into brilliant flames of warmth, laughter and joy, creating a barrier against the despair. The noise of the world turned into a cacophony of whispers. Rachel wailed, her figure becoming more defined within the shadows, tears streaking her face. "No! You have to go! Just leave me!" Desperation laced her words, but it was too late. A tension built, a decision made that would either shatter their hopes or break the tether of despair. "Not without you!" Kelly shouted again, the pounding of her heart matching the thunders of a storm ready to unfurl. She reached for Rachel, instinctively pulling in the light that wanted to save not just her, but her friend too. With one fierce pull, she grasped Rachel's hand as the shadows swept around them, waiting to feast. At that moment, the grotesque figure roared, a sound that rumbled through the air, the darkness swirling violently as though it were suspended in conflict. The light flickered, dimming, but the tether held for now. Then, without warning, the earth heaved. The ground split beneath them and screams erupted, blending with the shadows, a nightmarish serenade that pulled at reality. "Kelly! Let go!" Rachel screamed, but the panic resonating in her voice made the choice unbearable. Would she let her friend slip back into that terrible fate? The shadows clasped tightly around Rachel's arms, drawing her back toward that monstrous figure, and in that agonizing second, a decision loomed large. Would their combined light be enough? As darkness threatened to eclipse everything, the air thick with tension, they both realized one undeniable truth. Fighting together might be their only chance to survive this nightmare. But could they muster the strength to stand against the tide of despair that awaited them? The abyss roared back, ready to reclaim its own. What would their choice bring, and would it lead to salvation or doom? The ground shook violently beneath them, a rumble fit for the monsters of nightmares. Kelly felt the pull of darkness around Rachel, strong and insatiable, but her grip tightened. Panic surged through her veins, every heartbeat screamed for survival. Then, the shadows enveloped Rachel's figure completely, the grotesque figure's claws stretching hungry and eager. Time slowed, seconds stretching into an eternity. Kelly's breath quickened, each inhale tasting of fear and despair, the air thick like cold fog, suffocating. "Hold on! Please!" Kelly gasped, her knuckles white around Rachel's hand. The shadows writhed and twisted, tendrils of despair hissing as they fought against the light smoldering between them. The more she held on, the more their bond seemed to glow, radiating warmth in defiance of the chill encasing them. But that light flickered. The grotesque figure snarled, its face a mask of shadows and malice, and its laughter returned, a cacophony of torment. Your memories are useless. Love means nothing here. It boomed, and with that another tremor surged through the ground, sending a jolt up Kelly's spine. It was like the earth itself was crying out. Kelly felt her resolve waning, doubt threatening to creep in. No! You're wrong! She shouted, her voice piercing through the chaos. In her mind flooded the images of their friendship, the secret hugs, the late-night laughter, their dreams intertwined like vines melting into a tapestry of youth. Suddenly, Rachel's eyes locked onto Kelly's, desperation mingling with a flicker of hope. Fight! Let us fight! Together! She yelled, pulling against the shadows that consumed her. The connection between them sparked, energy crackling like electricity, firing up Kelly's heart. The gate! We can reach it! Kelly yelled, determination flooding her voice as she pushed through the gnawing dread clutching at her throat. Just focus! On us! Together, they poured everything into that tether. Kelly drew on the memories, every smile, every secret shared, every moment of joy. A warmth blossomed in her chest, light raging against the pull of the darkness, illuminating the gloom like a lighthouse in the storm. Yet the more they fought, the more the grotesque figure screeched, the sound reverberating through the very fabric of reality. It lunged forward, shadows morphing into razor-like tendrils that slashed at Kelly, aiming for her heart. Each brushed against her skin left icy burns as if the darkness feared the light that dared to oppose it. Stay with me! Kelly screamed, feeling Rachel's grip slowly start to wane as the shadows pulled her back. Time was running out, they needed to move, to act. Just believe in us! Rachel shouted, a last plea filled with fervor as she strained against the clutches of the unseen terror. Kelly could see the tug-of-war happening, could feel the stretch and strain of their reality warping. With a surge of defiance, Kelly remembered the gate, the promise it held. Hope sparked within her. On 3! She shouted, unyielding. 1, 2, 3! They pulled together, light roaring back against the shadows, the grotesque figure shrieking in frustration. The barrier of darkness cracked under the pressure of their combined force, light flickering brighter. The gate sat just beyond reach, a beacon of salvation. But something was amiss, a rumbling deep in the earth, an underlying hum of something ancient awakening as they fought. The shadows coiled tighter, determined to drag them back, while a chill settled over Kelly. Kelly! Rachel's voice was taut with fear, tinged with something darker. Something isn't right. In that moment, the ground shuddered violently again, the air turning electric and heavy, and Kelly realized the gate itself was alive, feeding on their fear and drawing strength from the chaos. Suddenly, a howl ripped through the air, too deeply visceral, too guttural, promising madness if they failed. It wasn't just the grotesque figure after them. It was something far worse. As the world around them threatened to dissolve into pure darkness, the sinister truth loomed. The gate was not a doorway to salvation. It might just hatch something even more terrifying. What awaited them beyond? Would light save them, or would darkness swallow them whole? Kelly's heart hammered wildly against her ribcage as the shadows screamed louder, the grotesque figure writhing with fury. The gate loomed, twisting and fading like a mirage in the desert, shimmering with malevolent energy. Kelly, it's too late. We have to go! Rachel cried, terror lining her face, her grip slipping like sand through fingers. The shadows yanked at her, wrapping around her legs, pulling her back into the abyss. No! The word ripped from Kelly's throat, raw and desperate. Every fiber of her being screamed to hold on, to resist the darkness. We're not giving up. Together. With renewed strength, Kelly thought about their laughter echoing through the summer nights, those moments of pure joy that felt untouched by the world. An image swelled in her mind, two friends lying on the grass, sharing secrets as stars filled the sky. That connection, that undeniable bond. Remember the nights we shared? She yelled into the chaos. This is nothing compared to what we faced then. Fight with me. With those words, the light surged brighter. But the grotesque figure roared, hellish fury spilling from its maw. Childish memories can't protect you. The darkness is your true home. The laughter, a horrific sound, echoed into the depths of the night, reverberating like shattered glass. Each note twisted deeper into Kelly's mind, a reminder that every laugh could turn to sobs, that every friendship could turn to ashes. Keep going. Rachel strained, her voice creaking under the weight of shadows. The tether between them glimmered, but threads of darkness clawed at it, gnashing, trying to sever what little hope remained. Don't let it in. Don't let it consume us. Kelly couldn't tell if she was shouting at Rachel or herself. The ground trembled again, an angry pulse beneath them. The gate's pulse echoed their terror, thrumming with ominous energy. Kelly could feel nagging whispers creep into her thoughts, sowing doubt. This isn't real, they hissed. What's on the other side is worse. Breath coming in ragged gasps, Kelly pushed through that fog of despair. Together! She shouted, not wanting to lose sight of Rachel's eyes. And then, out of the blackness, a pair of crimson eyes burned against the shadows, locking onto them, a hungry hunger that made her blood run cold. It was watching them, waiting for them to weaken. It's so close. We need to act. Now! Kelly yelled, her voice overshadowed by the wails rising around them, a sinister orchestra that threatened to drown them in despair. But she couldn't falter now, not when the darkness was so nearly ready to consume them both. Rachel screamed, tugging harder against the shadows writhing around her like serpents. Push! Now! They needed to take a final leap of faith, or they'd fall into this nightmare forever. One last time, they both ignited the light within. Hope sparked a fire in their chests as they aimed for the gate, fingers intertwined, pulling against the tether that sought to split them apart. But then, with a deafening crack, the ground split open beneath them, a chasm gaping wide, its edges lined with glimmering shadows that moaned with a curse. Kelly grasped Rachel's hand so tightly it felt as though her bones might break. Do you trust me? She screamed over the chaos. Yes. Rachel yelled, her voice cutting through the tumult like a knife. The shadows swirled around them, thick and bitter, clinging like a smothering fog ready to snuff out their light. The gate pulsed ominously, almost gloating, as the air filled with the smell of sulfur and rotten decay. Then on 3, 1, 2. But before she could say 3, an unbearable force burst from the gate, slamming into them, throwing them apart into the darkness. Kelly felt her grip loosen, her heart wrenching with the fear of losing Rachel. A cold laugh echoed through the air, deeper, resonating through her bones, chilling her to the core. I warned you! And then it began. Rachel's scream shattered the night. Kelly's world spiraled into an abyss of shadows. Alone in the dark, she felt the loneliness seep into her soul. Would she ever find Rachel? Or had the darkness claimed another light? The gate hung before her, still pulsing, but all the laughter, memories, and warmth seemed drowned out by the shrieks of the damned. What awaited her beyond that threshold? Would she dare to step into the unknown, or would the shadows pull her down into despair? As Kelly stood trembling at the edge of that gaping maw of darkness, shadows writhed, whispering her name like a vile song. The air smelled of burning fear and despair, thick with something sinister. Rachel's screams echoed in her mind, a haunting reminder of what she'd lost. Kelly's heart felt like it was being heaved against her chest as terror twisted her insides. Rachel! She cried, her voice splintering through the heavy silence. I'm coming back for you. There was no answer, only the ferocious howls of the dark that wrapped around her legs like serpents, dragging at her, tugging her closer to the precipice. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, urging her to decide. But how could she be brave enough to step into that void? Then she remembered. Memories flooded her mind, the laughter shared over summer treats, the silly games that once made everything feel safe. Those memories ignited a spark, pushing back against the encroaching shadows. We had so many good times. I can't forget that, she shouted, as if daring the darkness to swallow her whole. Suddenly, the ground shook again, rattling her resolve. The shadows roared, furious at her defiance, and the grotesque figure re-emerged, its face twisted into a horrific scowl. "Let her go, and you can join us!" "Embrace the darkness!" it screeched, its voice oily and thick. "No!" Kelly shouted. "I won't surrender to you or this darkness." Her stubbornness was building within her, a force demanding to be unleashed. She took a deep breath, locking her gaze onto the glowing gate. "Rachel needs me." With a burst of courage, Kelly sprinted towards the shimmering gateway, straining against the tightening restraints of the shadows. It felt as if they were trying to carve her apart, but she pressed on, driven by the bond she shared with her friend, urging her feet to move even as they felt like lead. "You can't take us. We're stronger together." She pushed the words through her clenched teeth, knowing that she needed to reach Rachel, to bring her back. In that moment, the gate pulsed, responding to her fight. The beam of light grew larger, illuminating the darkness around her. With every step, she felt the power of their shared memories coursing through her veins, love, laughter, everything wrapped around them. It was an unshakable bond, one that could defy even the deepest despair. Collapsing into the light, she felt the shadows retract, howling in rage as if they couldn't comprehend a light so strong. Kelly hurled herself forward, lunging into the illuminated space, her heart pounding with every ounce of hope she could muster. The air thickened around her as she broke past the barrier, a blinding flash erupting as she descended into chaos. The grotesque figure howled, twisting with fury at the exit, losing its strength behind her. Kelly fought through the blinding light and disorientation, every instinct screaming for Rachel. Finally, she stepped into a realm that felt both familiar and foreign. She gasped as she found herself back in the park, perfectly normal, with sunlight filtering down through the trees. But there was something sweetly dangerous in the air, a residue of the shadows that lingered just out of her view. It was here, in this deceptive calm, that she found Rachel. Rachel was on her knees, the light of the park surrounding her, but she looked lost, tangled in the remnants of shadow that clung to her like a bad memory. "Kelly, help me!" she cried, face pale and eyes glazed. Kelly rushed to her, desperate to grasp her hand. "I'm here! Hold on!" She grabbed Rachel's hands, weaving power through them, pulling from every joyous moment they had ever shared. Tendrils of darkness snaked toward Rachel, whispering promises of safety in exchange for surrender. "No! Fight it, Rachel! Remember us!" Kelly urged, clutching tightly. "We can do this!" With a sudden surge, Rachel blinked, clarity returning to her eyes as she looked into Kelly's face, a flicker of recognition igniting like a spark. "Kelly, I'm here! We're together! Now let us take back our lives!" Kelly shouted, pouring every ounce of their shared love into Rachel's hands. The shadows recoiled as the light exploded from their clasped hands, a brilliant flare that filled the park, pushing back the darkness inch by inch. "You won't take us!" they shouted in unison, hearts beating in tandem, refusing to be claimed. With a final burst, the shadows screamed as they were blasted away, disappearing as the golden light enveloped them in warmth, washing over the ground like sweet rain on parched earth. They fell to the ground, panting, the sun shining brightly overhead as the weight of the nightmare lifted. Around them, the park stood vibrant, blooming once again, laughing children echoing in the distance like a symphony of joy. Rachel turned to Kelly, tears in her eyes. "We made it." "Yes," Kelly replied, her heart swelling with relief and joy. "Together. Always together." As the shadows retreated far beyond, leaving only silence and light in their place, the two girls embraced, surrounded by the scents of grass and warmth. Although Maplewood would carry the scars of that summer, there would be brighter days ahead, laughter, love, and a bond unbreakable no matter how dark things got. As they stood together, hand in hand, they knew their journey wasn't merely about survival but triumphing over the darkest of nights. The whispers faded, but the memory of what they fought for glimmered like stars in the vast sky. So here comes the big ask. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let us show everyone the power of light together. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories, because your voice matters. And you need to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Support the channel. Only true fans know how important this is.